you guys? Welcome back. Got another science type of video for you today from the new science website, but I did rewrite it through ChatGPT just in the interest of copyright. So the facts and general idea of the articles are still the same. It's just paraphrased. I've also got my dog in the background here. He's okay right now, but sometimes when he falls asleep, he starts to breathe kind of loudly. So we'll see how long he can sit there for. I might need to move him. So this collection of articles was in the New Scientist website. It was called "We've Seen the Future and It Will Blow Your Mind." And it says, New Scientist is 60 years old this week. And what better way to celebrate a landmark birthday than to wax lyrical about another time? But we're not going to hark back to the past. We're going to gaze another 60 years forward. What is the world going to be like in 2076? And there's quite a few articles here. Some of them are about energy and electricity, population, nuclear war, science and technology, settling on Mars, genetically engineered people. So it's all speculative, really. When I looked briefly through, I could see that a lot of the articles seem to be written in 2016, so about 8 years ago. This is what some of the experts thought. So much has changed in 8 years already. I wonder if they could have predicted that. So I hope you guys sit back and relax, get comfortable, and we will read these articles now. So the first one I have for you is called "The World in 2076. Artificial starlight has made energy free." We already rely on nuclear fusion, but the reactor is 150 million kilometers away, our sun. We haven't figured out an efficient way to harness its power directly, so we burn its stored energy in the form of coal, oil, and gas, gradually heating our planet like a frog in boiling water. Creating a sun-like fusion reactor on Earth could help solve this issue, though it's a massive challenge. Research into nuclear fusion began over 60 years ago, and the leading design, the tokamak, has been around for half a century. Tokamaks confine heavy hydrogen isotopes within a donut-shaped magnetic field. Heating and compressing the plasma to fuse deuterium and tritium, releasing energy. After testing a series of progressively larger tokamaks, fusion researchers decided a decade ago to construct a massive one in France, named ITER. If all goes according to plan, which is unlikely, ITER will generate 500 megawatts of energy for a few hundred seconds by 2035, making it the first fusion reactor to produce more energy than it consumes. However, two significant challenges will remain, according to Mickey Wade, Vice President of General Atomics and Director of the US-based DIIID fusion program. One is developing materials that can endure prolonged plasma exposure, and the other is maintaining the strong magnetic fields needed to confine the plasma. Overcoming these challenges would be a monumental breakthrough. Fusion could largely eliminate our dependence on fossil fuels, providing clean and extremely cheap energy in nearly unlimited quantities. But would it? While fusion power is cleaner than fossil fuels, it isn't entirely carbon neutral. Although the reactors don't emit carbon directly, the processes involved in construction, fuel production, and waste management have their own carbon footprints. Fusion also produces radioactive waste, though it decays in decades rather than centuries or millennia. Additionally, fusion power won't be too cheap to meter. The reactors are incredibly expensive to build, with ITER's cost exceeding 20 billion euros. Investors will need to recoup their expenditures, but once operational, the running costs will be low. The oceans hold enough deuterium to fuel fusion reactors for tens of thousands of years. Tritium, while rare in nature, can be produced from lithium, which is abundant. Although fusion power could theoretically support the entire world, it's unlikely in practice. Fusion plants would likely be used primarily for baseload power, with energy storage technologies like ultracapacitors charged by solar and wind, meeting peak demand. We'll also need new methods to power airplanes and other technologies that can't rely directly on grid power. Fusion might still be an elusive future technology 60 years from now. Solar and wind may not fulfill all our energy needs. If that happens, we might have to rely on nuclear fission, with its associated risks of accidents, long-lived waste, and proliferation of nuclear weapons. Advances in superconductivity and geoengineering could potentially help, but ultimately we need a substantial amount of homemade sunshine by 2076. And that's the end of the first article. The next one, also related to energy, is called The World in 2076, Goodbye Electricity, Hello Superconductivity. 30 years can seem like an eternity when waiting for the next groundbreaking discovery. For half of the new scientists' existence, a dedicated group of researchers has believed that a world-altering breakthrough is imminent. Yanming Ma of Jilin University in Changchun, China, says such a discovery would bring revolutionary change for our normal life. The breakthrough in question, a superconductor that functions at room temperature and normal pressure. While this might not sound exciting at first, the implications are monumental. Superconductors are materials that conduct electricity without any resistance. This phenomenon was first observed by Dutch physicist Heike Kamerlingh-Onnes in 1911, when he found that Mercury's resistance dropped to zero at 4.2 degrees above absolute zero. Other materials were later discovered to be superconducting at slightly higher temperatures, but the need for extreme cooling limited their practical applications. That changed in 1986 with the discovery of high-temperature superconductors, which stop resisting below approximately negative 170 degrees Celsius. Although high temperature is a relative term here, This discovery made the idea of room temperature superconductors seem more plausible. However, the next major leap forward has not yet occurred. According to Paul Atfield of the University of Edinburgh in the UK, we have not surpassed the advancements made 30 years ago. New materials have been found to superconduct at somewhat higher temperatures, but only under extremely high pressures. For now, superconductors remain impractical for the transformative applications needed to change the world, such as transportation and power transmission. Superconductors can repel magnetic fields, allowing magnets to levitate above them. This property makes them ideal for highly efficient, frictionless maglev trains that hover above tracks. The absence of energy loss is also crucial for power supply. Currently, electricity sent from power stations to consumers encounters resistance in wires, resulting in significant energy loss. With superconducting cables, there would be no such loss, allowing batteries using these materials to stay charged indefinitely. These technologies could resolve many global energy issues without relying on another potential energy revolution, nuclear fusion. My dog had very minor surgery today, so he's a bit whiny and sad. Keeps letting out these little whimpers. Mikhail Erametz of the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry in Mainz, Germany, believes a world powered by superconductivity is within reach. He states there are no theoretical barriers to achieving room temperature superconductivity. In August, a team led by Ivan Bosovic of the Brookhaven National Laboratory in Upton, New York, published a groundbreaking paper in Nature that could point the way forward. It suggests a strategy change in our quest. Bosovic says, "I'm optimistic." Can you hear my dog breathing? I can definitely hear it. I hope I don't get to editing this and then realize it's totally distracting. So moving on from the energy speculation, the next article is called Stanisław Lem, the man with the future inside him. From the 1950s onwards, science fiction writer Stanisław Lem began creating visionary works that anticipated our present and extended far into the future. His foresight remains unmatched. In William Burroughs' 1961 novel, The Soft Machine, a scene describes people compulsively approving and repeating slogans, hinting at a form of social media. Such predictions, while interesting, are often lucky guesses. For instance, Robert Heinlein's 1948 story, Space Cadet, features microwave food, but does this really matter? Futurology involves more than guesswork, and not all predictions are shallow. Ray Bradbury, writing in the 1950s, envisioned earbud headphones and elevator music, foreseeing the eerie reality of today's media-heavy shopping malls. However, even Bradbury's predictions were often exaggerations of his own time, imagining more TV, more suburbia, and cars without roads. Writers like Frederick Pohl and Arthur C. Clarke depicted futures that were extensions of their contemporary decades. Stanisław Lem the Polish satirist, essayist, and science fiction writer, dismissed such predictions. Meaningful prediction, he argued, is not about serving up the present with startling improvements or revelations instead of the future. Lem sought to capture the entire human adventure in all its complexity and grandeur, creating new chapters in our story rather than simplistic happy endings. Remarkably, Lem's foresight was extraordinary. Nearly a year before the Cuban Missile Crisis, his 1961 book, Memoirs Found in a Bathtub, captured the irrationality of Cold War policies. While others imagined a future of tightly controlled information, Lem envisioned the internet and the flood of misinformation it would bring, eroding civic freedoms. 2 decades before virtual reality became a term, Lem wrote about its educational and cultural impacts, coining the term phantomatics. His 1964 book, Summer Technology, addressed ethical questions in genetic engineering long before they became mainstream. Lem also imagined nanotechnology, including space elevator cables made of spider silk and the catastrophic grey goo scenario, well before these concepts entered public discourse. He even anticipated the technological singularity, the idea of artificial superintelligence sparking rapid technological growth, before Gordon Moore formulated his famous law on the exponential growth of computing power. Not all his predictions were serious. Lem coined the phrase theory of everything to mock the concept. Born on September 12, 1921, in Poland, Lem developed his critical perspective early, shaped by near-death experiences during World War II. His rational outlook viewed human use of reason as a way to navigate a world dominated by chance. An inventive mind, he was disappointed to discover that many of his school inventions, like the differential gear, already existed. His understanding of systems began with creating a bureaucratic state complete with internal passports during his childhood. Lem's first novel, Hospital of the Transfiguration, 1955, was rooted in the absurdity of his world. He turned to science fiction to evade Stalinist censors, becoming prolific after Poland's post-Stalinist thaw in 1956. Over the next 12 years, he published 17 books, including Solaris in 1961, his most famous work amongst English speakers. Solaris tells of a group of experts orbiting an inscrutable sentient planet struggling with its painful resurrections of their dead. The novel reflects Lem's pessimistic view on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. He believed alien intelligences exist but are likely incomprehensible to us, possibly ignoring communication or living in simulations rather than facing the physical world. Lem argued that reason is an artifact, limited by human creation. An extraterrestrial reason could be vastly different. This theme is explored in Fiasco in 1986, where alien reason diverges significantly from our own. Lem's understanding of history was unparalleled among futurologists. He believed that violent and genocidal impulses are constant, while our destructive capabilities grow. If humanity survives its own destructive tendencies, the challenge will be managing our success. In The Chain of Chance, 1975, Lem envisions a future on the brink of complexity, where governments seem increasingly impotent, a prescient prediction about the fusion of accessible media and global terrorism. Should humanity master the universe, technology will eventually replace natural selection, enabling us to re-engineer our planet and ourselves. At the extreme of his vision, Lem imagined abandoning our current reality for a new one, yet still subject to historical contingencies. In his fictitious review of Professor Dobbs' Non-Serviam, he depicted a creator who might destroy a beautiful, intelligent, artificial universe due to budget constraints, a grim reminder of our vulnerabilities. Most futurologists seek utopias, desiring an end to history and a happy ending. Lem, however, wanted to see what lay beyond, believing that history is real and continuous. He recognized that solutions create new problems and that no perfect world exists, either in the past or the future. By his death in 2006, Lem had sold nearly 40 million books in over 40 languages. He earned acclaim from futurologists, scientists, and philosophers. Lem advised realism, patience, and intelligence, reminding us that the world is vast and our journey has just begun. So the next article is a bit dark, but I promise they're not all like this. It's called The World in 2076, That Nuclear War Was a Bit of a Bummer. So it's probably dark, but I think I have always had a bit of a curiosity about nuclear war. I don't really need to know what would happen, but I've kind of wondered a little bit. So I'll just try to think of it like that. It's informational. It's just talking about what could happen. Okay. With tensions flaring once more between Moscow and Washington, along with the ongoing conflict between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, and China's expanding nuclear capabilities, the threat of nuclear war remains a chilling possibility. Concerns persist about Iran's nuclear ambitions, and North Korea is now a recognized nuclear power. Although the Cold War has ended, the nuclear arsenals and geopolitical hotspots remain. Could we see a nuclear conflict within the next 60 years? Currently, the world holds around 10,000 nuclear warheads, predominantly owned by Russia and the US. But what if these two superpowers refrain from launching their weapons, and instead a nuclear conflict erupts between India and Pakistan? Many outside South Asia might think such a war wouldn't impact them significantly. This assumption is gravely mistaken. India and Pakistan together have over 200 nuclear warheads, which are relatively small compared to those of the superpowers. If they deploy half of them, around 100 weapons each, with the destructive power of Little Boy, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945, the consequences would be catastrophic. The immediate aftermath in megacities like Delhi would be devastating, with millions affected by the explosions, firestorms, and radiation. But this would only be the beginning. According to simulations by Alan Robock of Rutgers University and Michael Mills at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, the resulting fires would propel about 5 million tons of black smoke into the stratosphere, where it would disperse globally. This dense smog would reduce solar radiation reaching the Earth's surface by 8%, leading to a dramatic drop in average winter temperatures by 2.5 to 6 degrees Celsius across North America, Europe, and much of Asia. These effects wouldn't be short-lived. They would peak around 5 years after the conflict and linger for over a decade. In addition to the nuclear winter, climate models predict a severe reduction in rainfall as weather systems lose energy. The collapse of the Asian monsoon would result in up to 80% less water for 2 billion people. The Amazon basin and arid regions like southwestern US and Western Australia would suffer similarly drastic reductions in rainfall. The smoke would also heat the stratosphere by about 30 degrees Celsius, triggering chemical reactions that would destroy much of the ozone layer. However, the greater threat would come from the near ice age temperatures, which could shorten the growing season in mid-latitude regions by up to 40 days. These devastating consequences would arise from a relatively small regional conflict. Stephen Starr of the University of Missouri has estimated that a nuclear war between US and Russia could inject 150 million tons of smoke into the stratosphere, blocking 70% of sunlight and cooling much of the world by 20 degrees Celsius or more. One of the greatest achievements of the past 60 years has been avoiding nuclear war. As we look to the future, we must hope this record continues. Yeah, we do. We've done pretty well so far. So I don't think there's anything more to do with war. I don't think, anyway. Next article is called "The World in 2076. The Anti-Science Backlash Has Begun." What's interesting about this one, it was written in 2016, so this is before COVID and all of that. So, okay. After the death of polymath John von Neumann in 1957, his friend and collaborator Stanisław Lem wrote a tribute to a man who significantly advanced science and technology in the post-war era. Lem noted that von Neumann had expressed concern about the future support for science. Human interests may shift, current scientific curiosities might fade, and entirely new preoccupations might dominate human minds in the future. Von Neumann's fears seemed overly pessimistic given the astounding scientific and technological advancements of the past 60 years. However, public attitudes can be unpredictable. Could his concerns become reality? Jack Stilgo from University College London, who studies the impact and perception of science and technology policy, voices similar concerns today. "I do worry that public opinion might turn," he says, "if people feel that innovation primarily benefits the wealthy, exacerbating inequality and neglecting broader social needs. Disenchantment could set in. Will society still embrace technology when robots take over jobs, or when insurance premiums skyrocket because human drivers are deemed the most hazardous? Could self-driving taxis face the same fate as automated looms attacked by Luddites in the past? In some small, discontented communities, the backlash has already started. Former mathematician Ted Kaczynski, known as the Unabomber, has published a book titled The Anti-Tech Revolution. He seems to believe that the only solution is to drastically scale back our scientific and technological pursuits, even if it means a violent regression in human lifestyles, says Steve Fuller, a sociologist at the University of Warwick in the UK. The book reads like a revolutionary manual on how to prevent science and technology from destroying the planet. Stilgo remains skeptical. Societies in affluent countries are deeply dependent on science and technology, so a complete reversal is unlikely, he asserts. Nonetheless, if public sentiment did shift against scientific progress, the consequences would be dire. Harvard University's historian of science Matthew Hirsch warns, a public mood that discourages scientific research would lead to technological and economic stagnation, resulting in technical and financial ruin. The social implications would be devastating as well. When academic institutions cease to discover new knowledge, their education deteriorates into dogma, half-truths, and untested assumptions derived from flawed texts, Hirsch explains. The possibility of a future where the public turns against science might seem distant, but it highlights the importance of ensuring that technological progress benefits all of society and addresses broader social needs. So the next article, The World in 2076, Human-Made Life Forms Walk the Earth. Life first emerged on Earth almost immediately after the planet cooled enough to support it, and since then it hasn't spontaneously arisen again over the span of 4 billion years. However, this long period of biological stasis might soon come to an end as scientists approach the groundbreaking achievement of creating life from non-living materials in the lab. Geneticists have already made significant strides by synthesizing custom genomes and inserting them into bacteria. They've also successfully altered the genetic code of bacteria to enable them to use novel, non-natural building blocks to produce proteins. These feats, though impressive, begin with pre-existing living organisms and involve modifying them. A more daring initiative aims to start with non-living chemical ingredients, sometimes using familiar nucleic acids and lipids, but other times employing radically different structures like self-assembling metal oxides. The objective is to guide these chemicals to cross the Darwinian threshold where they can replicate themselves heritably and evolve, meeting the essential criteria for being considered alive. If scientists achieve this, the ramifications would be profound. Most fundamentally, creating synthetic life would complete the philosophical shift initiated by Darwin from a creation-centric perspective of the living world. It will demonstrate conclusively that life is nothing more than a complex chemical system, says Mark Bedeau, a philosopher of science at Reed College in Portland, Oregon. While most scientists already accept this view, synthetic life would solidify this understanding in a way that the general public could not ignore. Moreover, achieving this in the lab would suggest that the origin of life is a relatively attainable event, thus increasing the likelihood of finding life elsewhere in our solar system. A second genesis would also provide biologists with an independent comparison point to better understand the fundamentals of life. Since synthetic life would be man-made, scientists could modify it, changing its components to discover which traits are truly essential. According to Stephen Benner from the Foundation for Applied Molecular Evolution in Florida, what we consider natural life is burdened with billions of years of evolutionary history, making it challenging to discern what is essential for life itself versus what is essential for our specific form of life. newly created life forms would offer a cleaner system for experimentalists to investigate life's fundamental requirements. The practical applications of synthetic life may be further in the future. Initially, any new life form would be so delicate that it would need constant nurturing in a lab environment. Thus, biotechnologists aiming to produce specific molecules or degrade toxic waste might find more success by modifying existing natural life forms. However, in the long term, artificial life might evolve to be robust enough to survive independently. If this happens, it would allow biotechnologists to break free from the limitations of natural life to achieve new goals. We can explore a vast array of potential benefits, says Lee Cronin at the University of Glasgow, UK. These benefits come with significant risks. A self-sustaining, independently evolving life form is inherently unpredictable and uncontrollable. Biotechnologists will need to design effective off-switches to neutralize synthetic life forms should they become pathogenic or otherwise harmful. Additionally, policymakers and ethicists must determine when and how to activate these safety mechanisms. The public may oppose such advancements, raising familiar concerns about playing God. Therefore, discussions about the implications of synthetic life need to begin promptly. This could become a pressing issue in the short time, warns Badeau. In summary, while the creation of synthetic life presents extraordinary opportunities for scientific and technological advancement, it also necessitates careful consideration of the ethical, safety, and societal implications. The journey from non-living chemicals to new forms of life is not only a scientific endeavor, but also a profound philosophical and practical challenge. It feels like almost every day I'm hearing about the advancements with AI and non-human life with human life becoming cyborgs and things like that. Even 10 years from now, things will be really different. And this next article, even more futuristic. The world in 2076, thousands of people have settled on Mars. By 2066, Mars has become home to a pioneering community. As the sun rises over a rust-colored horizon, lighting up the hydroponic fields, the first permanent Martian settlers begin another 24-and-a-half-hour day. Elon Musk envisions this as a reality. In September of 2016, the SpaceX founder shared his ambitious, albeit still somewhat vague, plans for sending humans to Mars within the next decade or so. He even suggested that by the 2060s, 1 million people could be living on the red planet. NASA's timeline aims for the first human landing in the 2030s. Significant groundwork is necessary before settlers can establish a thriving community. This involves sending massive amounts of life support equipment, habitats, energy systems, food supplies, and technology for extracting breathable oxygen and drinkable water from Mars's atmosphere. This undertaking is monumental. The shortest journey from Earth to Mars takes about 5 months, and this window only opens every 2 years when the planets align. Optimistically, this provides around 22 optimal launch opportunities to prepare Mars for human settlement by 2060. However, recent setbacks like the failure of the ExoMars lander highlight the difficulties of landing on Mars. The planet's gravity accelerates descending crafts, while its thin atmosphere makes parachutes ineffective. The heaviest object landed so far, the 1-ton Curiosity rover, required a combination of parachutes, retro rockets, and a sky crane for a successful landing. Current technology cannot land anything heavier than Curiosity. SpaceX plans to utilize supersonic retropropulsion, essentially reversing down with booster rockets firing to slow descent, and aims to test this system soon. NASA is collaborating on this project, hoping to gain valuable insights. The journey to Mars and survival afterward present numerous hazards: high radiation levels, solar flares, abrasive dust, and temperatures plummeting to minus 125 degrees Celsius. Additionally, growing food on Mars remains an unresolved challenge. Assuming we overcome these obstacles, what then? Enthusiasts of space exploration often draw parallels to historical migrations, where humans set off for unknown and potentially dangerous new lands. However, Mars offers no resources to exploit, unlike the New World where European settlers hoped to find riches or at least land for farming. Early Martian settlers will be reliant on Earth for a long time, making self-sufficiency by 2060 seem highly optimistic. One significant contribution settlers could make is scientific research. Humans on Mars could conduct experiments much faster than robotic rovers. Moreover, research into growing food would become a top priority. We have a precedent for a remote but vital research outpost, Antarctica. While no one lives there permanently, scientists make temporary stays to conduct unique research. Mars might follow a similar model. Another difference from historical explorations is the constant, albeit delayed, communication with Earth. Martian settlers will remain connected with those on Earth who will witness both their triumphs and setbacks. This connection could significantly influence our decision to continue exploring the solar system or retreat to Earth. If we manage to secure food, air, and a sustainable living environment on Mars, these advancements could be adapted for other planets or moons. Mars represents the first major test of our potential to become a multi-planetary species. I'm trying to think if I would go to Mars. I'd probably go to visit. Just lots of desert. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, moving on. Next article. The world in 2076. Now we can easily make whatever we want. Wonder what they mean by that. Imagining a world without scarcity challenges our conventional thinking. Typically, when we envision the end of material needs, it's on a personal level, notes John Quiggin, an economist from the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia. But what if everyone's needs were met? Scarcity underpins our fundamental economic framework, he explains. This is the essence of capitalism, a system whose principles seem as fixed as the laws of nature. What would happen to the economy if everything were free? Who would produce goods if there was no monetary incentive? Wouldn't this be akin to communism? Contemplating a world not driven by the market is like a fish trying to understand life outside water. Jeremy Rifkin tackled this concept in his 2014 book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society. He argues that capitalism is on the brink of outliving its usefulness. It's the ultimate market triumph, he says, a shift to a society where automation drives production costs to nearly zero, rendering products essentially free. For a glimpse of this future, look at the music and publishing industries. The internet has drastically reduced the costs of creating and distributing content. While disruptive for some, Rifkin views this as a precursor to a broader shift across all sectors. Key to this transformation will be advanced fabrication devices that can produce almost anything on demand. Imagine today's 3D printers, but far more advanced, akin to comparing a modern computer to a 1960s calculator. In about 60 years, these devices could evolve into what are known as molecular assemblers. This concept, introduced by Eric Drexler in 1977, envisions nanofabrication machines capable of manipulating individual molecules with great precision and speed to create any desired object. With a press of a button, you could produce food, medicine, clothing, or bicycle parts with minimal investment and effort. Although we can't predict exactly what such a world would look like, some outlines are becoming clearer. Rifkin predicts that these fabricators will drive a sharing economy. Ownership will transform into access. Think of services like Spotify or Uber applied universally. And instead of buying, you'll print what you need. Within 2 decades, Rifkin suggests, capitalism will no longer dominate economic life. It will share the stage with a new system it helped create. By 2076, capitalism might have entirely phased out, replaced by a society where basic needs are universally met. Rifkin calls this new economic model the commons, which will redefine not just the economy, but the very environment we live in. In this new world, you'll still work, but not for money. Your employer will be a non-profit organization. Your wealth will be measured in social capital, reflecting your reputation as a contributing member of society. Contributions to open source projects or sustainable living practices will enhance your social standing. Apps tracking your contributions to the commons, whether through your work, energy conservation, or other community beneficial actions, will allow you to exchange these social credits for luxuries, like an antique chair that's distinctly not mass-produced. Even in this future commons, our humanity will persist. Okay, so the next article is called The World in 2076. Genetically engineered people are everywhere. So this article starts with a story about a CRISPR baby. I think this might be fictional because I tried to look up the name and I couldn't find anything. So it says, in April 2021, the birth of Taro Yamada in Tokyo captured global headlines. Dubbed the miracle boy by the media, Taro's birth was extraordinary because his father, due to a Y chromosome mutation, was considered completely infertile. Yet genetic tests confirmed Taro was indeed his son. This groundbreaking event was made possible through an innovative procedure at a fertility clinic. The clinic extracted stem cells from Taro's father, corrected the Y chromosome mutation using CRISPR genome editing, and derived sperm cells from the corrected stem cells. These edited sperm cells fertilized the mother's eggs, embedding the genetic correction into Taro's DNA. Thus, Taro Yamada became the first individual with an edited genome. Taro was the pioneer, but he would not be the last. While some nations tightened regulations to ban genome editing following his birth, others saw it as a justified means to help infertile parents have biologically related children. Consequently, the number of genome-edited births began to climb, first dozens, then hundreds, then thousands annually. These children looked no different from their peers because their genomes were carefully edited to be entirely normal. This is likely the onset of the germline genome editing revolution. There's considerable discussion about editing heritable DNA to eliminate genes for diseases like cystic fibrosis. However, most conditions can already be avoided by screening IVF embryos before implantation. So why would future parents choose genome editing over pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, PGD, which is safer and cheaper? PGD is limited to screening out 1 or 2 harmful mutations at a time. Genome editing, on the other hand, promises the ability to make multiple changes simultaneously. Once germline editing is used for infertility, fertility clinics will probably offer to adjust other genes at the same time. Critics will call this a slippery slope, while supporters will see it as logical, even humane progress. Since everyone has hundreds of mutations that elevate the risk of cancer, Alzheimer's, and mental disorders, why not eliminate the worst ones? In fact, if it can be done safely, it might be considered unethical not to. And why stop at eliminating harmful mutations? Beneficial gene variants could also be introduced, making people immune to HIV or less prone to obesity. By the 2030s, some countries might permit the addition of such advantageous traits. These interventions would be highly controversial. Even more contentious would be the enhancements of traits like personality, intelligence, or other valued characteristics. Currently, no single gene variant has been identified that significantly boosts IQ to the extent that factors like wealth or education do. The complexity of the brain suggests that we may never fully predict the impact of specific mutations. Therefore, introducing brain-altering mutations not naturally occurring would be an enormous risk, one that neither parents nor regulators should take. However, genome editing can indisputably reduce susceptibility to numerous diseases. As it becomes evident that genome-edited children are generally healthier than those conceived traditionally, affluent parents may choose genome editing even without pressing medical reasons. Could this create a further advantage for the wealthy, widening the gap between rich and poor? Quite possibly. However, by the time New Scientist celebrates its 120th anniversary, it's plausible that many countries will routinely and uncontroversially offer genome editing to prospective parents, considering that the long-term healthcare savings will outweigh the costs of the treatment. I had heard that they were already doing this. Was that just a conspiracy theory? but I never looked into it. And if you consider the last article that talked about everything becoming free, there wouldn't be any price for genome editing babies, while also incorporating technology, and we're just going to be superhuman, aren't we? The difference is going to feel like how we almost look at Neanderthals, and like we're going to be the new Neanderthals. Crazy. So the next article is called "The World in 2076. We Still Haven't Found Alien Life." For decades, we've been on a quest to discover if we are alone in the universe, employing increasingly advanced technology in our search. Mars rovers explore the planet's surface, and missions are in the works to investigate Saturn's moon Enceladus and Jupiter's moon Europa, both potential havens for liquid water. The James Webb Space Telescope, scheduled for launch in 2018, will allow astronomers to analyze the atmospheres of exoplanets for signs of life. Meanwhile, radio astronomers continue to listen for signals from intelligent extraterrestrial civilizations. Despite these efforts, we've found nothing. What if by the middle of this century we've explored all potentially habitable locations in the solar system, monitored radio waves from millions of stars, and scrutinized countless exoplanets, yet still come up empty-handed? Should we then conclude that we're truly alone? I don't think so. Those involved in the search assert that giving up is not an option. Mary Wojtek, director of NASA's astrobiology program, emphasizes that the vast number of stars and planets make it inconceivable that life hasn't arisen elsewhere. With approximately 100 billion galaxies in the known universe, each containing roughly 100 billion stars, even the most improbable events are likely to occur somewhere. If we failed to find alien life, it would prompt researchers to question their methods and assumptions rather than the existence of extraterrestrial life itself. John Willis, an astronomer at the University of Victoria in Canada, and author of a book on the search for alien life, points out that defining life is complex. Unlike the straightforward detection methods depicted in science fiction, real-life searches are more nuanced. For instance, while we look for water and oxygen on exoplanets, alien life might not rely on these molecules. Additionally, while we listen for radio signals from extraterrestrial civilizations, they might use communication methods beyond our current understanding. Even if alien life exists on a distant exoplanet, we might not detect it unless it significantly alters its planet's atmosphere. If our current searches yield no results, researchers will revisit their strategies, developing more sophisticated and sensitive techniques for future explorations. Of course, it is possible that we are alone in the universe, a solitary and highly improbable occurrence. If this is the case, scientists would need to reconsider their theories about the conditions necessary for life and what makes Earth unique. John Willis suggests that if the universe is indeed empty and we are the first life forms, we bear the significant responsibility of preserving ourselves and the planet. So I got a couple more articles for you guys. This one is "The World in 2076. The Theory of Everything is Here, We Think." Let's be honest, our current understanding of the universe is just a step towards uncovering something even more profound. History teaches us this about fundamental theories of nature. Consider Newton's universal law of gravity, which accurately described falling apples and orbiting planets for over 2 centuries until Einstein's general relativity offered a more precise understanding. Similarly, classical mechanics, which seem straightforward, become hazy with quantum uncertainty when examining subatomic particles. Quantum theory elucidates matter's behavior on a small scale, while general relativity explains the universe's large-scale dynamics. Each theory is highly accurate within its domain, but has gaps and inconsistencies, suggesting that they too are temporary placeholders for a more comprehensive theory. A theory of everything would address the areas where quantum theory and relativity fail, such as within black holes or during the universe's earliest moments. Many brilliant minds have stumbled in pursuit of this ultimate theory. Einstein spent his later years in a fruitless quest for such enlightenment. Progress has been slow since then. String theory, which proposes that fundamental particles are tiny vibrating strings, remains unproven and criticized for its lack of testable predictions. Alternative theories like loop quantum gravity have emerged but also lack definitive breakthroughs. Despite these challenges, the outlook for the next 60 years is optimistic. Mike Duff from Imperial College London, who has studied theories of everything since the late 1960s, is hopeful about the timeline. While I'm hesitant to make predictions, if pressed, I'd say it will take more than 10 years, but less than 100, he says. Carlo Rovelli from Aix-Marseille University in France, a prominent figure in loop quantum gravity, shares this optimism, believing that we will have a theory of quantum gravity within 60 years. However, the development of such a theory will mark a beginning, not an end. Theories gain acceptance over time. Predictions of general relativity, such as black holes and gravitational waves, were fully realized only decades after the theory's introduction. Gravitational waves were finally confirmed just recently. A unified theory will likely operate at energies far beyond our current capabilities, meaning experimental verification might be subtle and indirect. It could come from patterns in the cosmic microwave background, radiation from the Big Bang. Immediate practical applications of such a theory are unlikely, though not impossible. Rovelli notes, I don't see technological applications of the theory right now, but nobody imagined GPS back in the 1970s when I started studying general relativity. Thus, any breakthroughs will probably come gradually, with no single eureka moment. But the unexpected is always possible. When Paul Dirac unified quantum theory and special relativity in the 1920s, he predicted a second particle alongside the electron. The discovery of the positron soon after opened the door to the world of antimatter, a realm still not fully explored. A theory of everything, possibly based on string theory, might suggest the existence of a multiverse, vastly expanding our understanding or our questions. This pursuit excites scientists like Duff, who says most scientists are trying to become masters at the game. Theoretical physicists are still trying to understand the game. And the last article I have for you guys today is called The World in 2076, Machines Outsmart Us, but We're Still on Top. The outlook for the future seems grim from many angles. The world is besieged by environmental, economic, and political pressures. it's challenging to determine the most significant threat. Our existence itself is precarious, with dangers such as asteroid impacts, global warming, pandemics, or rogue nanomachines turning everything into grey goo. Another looming threat is artificial intelligence. In December 2014, Stephen Hawking warned the BBC that the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. It would take off on its own and redesign itself at an ever-increasing rate. Humans who were limited by slow biological evolution couldn't compete and would be superseded. Later, he added that AI could be either the best or worst thing to ever happen to humanity. Prominent figures like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Steve Wozniak have echoed similar concerns about AI's potential risk to humanity. Yet investment in AI research continues to soar, leading to remarkable advancements. In a landmark event, a Go master lost 4-1 to the AlphaGo computer in March. In numerous fields, from driving taxis to winning aerial dogfights, machines are starting to outperform humans. Hawking's apprehensions center on the concept of the technological singularity, the point when machine intelligence surpasses human intelligence, heralding a new, superior species on Earth. The notion traces back to thinkers like John von Neumann, a computing pioneer, and science fiction author Vernor Vinge. Stanisław Lem, in a 1958 tribute to von Neumann, mentioned a singularity in human affairs prompted by accelerating technological progress. Ray Kurzweil and Nick Bostrom have popularized the idea of a technological singularity in recent times, predicting it could occur around 2045. Machines overtaking humans in intelligence is alarming because humanity's dominance stems largely from our intellectual capabilities. While many animals surpass us in physical attributes, our intelligence has enabled us to develop tools, agriculture, and technologies like steam engines and smartphones, cementing our control over the planet. The prospect of machines that think, and think better than us, threatens to displace us. Just as other animals rely on our goodwill for their survival, we might find our fate dependent on the decision of superior thinking machines. The concept of an intelligence explosion, where machines rapidly enhance their intelligence, isn't far-fetched given the exponential growth trends in computing, such as Moore's law, which predicts the doubling of transistors on integrated circuits every 2 years. Despite the advancements, several arguments suggest a technological singularity may be unlikely. The fast-thinking dog argument posits that speed alone doesn't equate to increased intelligence. Even if a dog could think faster, it wouldn't play chess because it lacks the necessary cognitive constructs. Similarly, increasing computer processing speed doesn't automatically result in smarter AI. Intelligence is more than fast computation. It involves years of experience and learning, which may not be easily replicated in silicon. The anthropocentric argument challenges the idea that human intelligence is a unique tipping point. History shows we are not as exceptional as we like to believe. Copernicus, Darwin, and the discovery of DNA have all revealed our less than special place in the universe. There's no reason to assume that human intelligence is a special threshold for rapid advancements. The diminishing returns argument suggests that improvements in intelligence may not yield constant multipliers, but face diminishing returns. Early AI advancements offered low-hanging fruit, but further progress could be harder to achieve, limiting the extent of intelligence enhancement. The limits of intelligence argument highlights the fundamental constraints of the universe. Physical laws limit speed, accuracy, and predictability, and thinking machines will also face these limits. Superhuman intelligence won't necessarily overcome these fundamental barriers. The computational complexity argument notes that many computational problems are unsolvable even with exponential improvements. The halting problem, for instance, remains unsolvable regardless of computational advancements, highlighting the inherent limitations within computing. Given these challenges, a technological singularity may never occur. However, AI could still achieve superhuman intelligence through painstaking programming. This gradual impact may delay the societal changes feared by many, but planning for AI's influence on work and warfare is crucial. Many jobs may disappear, increasing societal inequalities, and AI could revolutionize warfare, potentially destabilizing global order. Proper regulation, like banning battlefield robots, is essential to avoid dystopian outcomes. If managed correctly, AI could enhance health, wealth, and happiness. If mishandled, it could be humanity's gravest error. I feel like that article pretty much summarizes everything that I've heard recently about AI and the potential pitfalls, but also the potential for it to be very helpful. And I always hear arguments from both sides, really. But we're kind of seeing the positive aspects of it now in real time, whereas the fears about AI are more theoretical. Like there's been the occasional thing that's happened that has made people worry, but still something that's worth thinking about, definitely. So that is a speculative look into the future. What do you guys think? There were more articles that were part of this series, but do you think that covered a lot of it? I guess there's a whole bunch of things we don't even know what to even expect, which is why it's exciting and scary. I feel like I could almost keep reading this, but it's probably worth ending the video here. I hope you guys liked this one. I hope it was sciencey enough. Feel free to recommend me anything else you guys would like to hear more about, or just like me to read. I'm always open to suggestions, so yeah. Thanks guys, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye.